Welcome to Culture of Paint. On this episode, we're going to take a look at what's caught our eye over the last couple of weeks in the miniatures painting world. For our main section, we're going to look at the amazing range of the Warhammer race Skaven and all the miniatures we've had over 30 odd years and why we love them so much. And then we'll close out the show, as usual, taking a look at what the hashtag paint cultists have been up to. Now, Culture Paint's aimed at a mature audience, and we might use explicit language and discuss adult themes. Now let's talk about paint. I might get that intro right one day. We can try and do a pre-record for it or something.
You should just press play on the same one.
I know, right? And we're in. So, hi everyone. Welcome to the chat. I'm Henry. Joining me, as usual, are Andy and Matt. Good evening, gents. How are you?
Very well. It's nice that it's colder than last Tuesday.
I know.
So I can actually sit here, not in pain.
Yeah, we decided to take last week off. I'm afraid after everything was melting.
It was a wise
me and Andy
choice.
had we had to have a work call with a business partner, and my webcam literally shit the bed halfway through and went psychedelic and everything. So it was not worth it, I don't think.
No.
But it's lovely to see everyone here in the chat. Familiar names and new ones as ever. Rich isn't joining us this episode, but he will be back as soon as he is able. So don't worry, we haven't offed him or anything like that. He brings the beard, let's be honest, even if nothing else. So Switzerland, nice. Gabby from says, Gabby, looking forward to seeing you on the upcoming class up north. A few other names recognised in there. James, Anton, lovely. Right, well, let's kick off with what's caught our eye over the last 3 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. 3 weeks.
So,
what we got?
First up is...
This is where I should have clicked on the slides button before we went live with recording. Well, what's the first slide, Matt?
It's Darren Latham's Skull Beaky.
Right, it's my pick. I'm sure the vast majority of you that are watching this are aware of Darren Latham, brilliant Warhammer miniatures painter. Has been at GW for donkeys as a painter and as a miniatures designer. Over the last couple of weeks, he's been a bit more active on social media, which is great. And he's painting up one of the new Mark 6 Marines in a very sort of old school, not super old school, but that sort of reimagining of Legion of the Damned that we got, 10, 15 years ago. And he's just put up a couple of great little sort of the classic how-to things. Actually not the classic how-to things, because you can follow them and they do make sense, and it's not just draw the fucking out. Yeah. But yeah, it's looking great.
It's my tutorials.
Can't wait to see it. The Legion of the Damned, very nostalgic for me. Like I remember that when they redid the tactical squad and they sculpted on the Legion of the Damned stuff, and you could buy it as the tactical squad, and then you had Veteran Sergeant Centurious was like the 100th store mini or something like that. I remember asking my nan to go and queue outside GW Wolverhampton for me for that one. So good times. And then they got a little bit of a reimagining, didn't they? Further down the line. I don't know that I've seen any Primaris Legion
Not
of the
yet.
Damned. I think so. No, none springs to mind.
They're very nostalgic for me as well, I think.
Yeah.
I loved them when I was a kid. And I think for me now, they're a bit cheesy, flames and skulls. So I don't know if I would do them, but I still enjoy looking at them. And actually, this is the helmet. But what got me was the flame shoulder pads he's done.
They're really great.
They're amazing.
So they're a more modern take, aren't they? On
That's
it.
fantastic.
Less stylized and a little bit more leaning towards sort of, well, they're still stylized, but you know what I mean. Less hot rod flame and more the flames you get on the modern bikes.
I bet that looks brilliant in real life, because it looks like really good blown up. So I think seeing that shoulder pad in the hand would be fantastic. I can't wait to see the whole mini finished, actually. It's going to be wicked.
Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing not too long, right?
Not with his new little studio thing that he's got going on. He's got a nice little painting space now.
Yeah. He's rattling through it. So yeah, nice to see some personal stuff from the guys up at GW. This will be an unashamedly GW focused episode.
He's in the chat, so hello.
Oh, nice. Oh well, we best move on then before we blow too much smoke.
I was just going to say, like, when he gets, because he's done the image with the classic heavy metal skull now on that pad, and it's just like a proper nostalgia kick. It's great.
Yeah. But nostalgia's good, and I think if there was ever going to be a time for some nostalgic Space Marine action, it's the release of the new RTB01 kit, isn't it? You know, and there's so many nods to that original kit in the new Heresy Mark 6 kit. It's brilliant. So I'm hoping we'll see a lot more. I'm still yet to see my first Crimson Fist using one of them.
Get it done yourself, then.
I was going to say, you and me were talking about that quite a lot, weren't we? About that needing doing.
Yeah.
So I found that in Crimson Fist Redemptor I did ages ago, actually. So I was like, that's a nice scheme. But yeah, that's my choice. What about you two? What's caught your eyes?
Next up is.
Oh wow!
Nice, cool.
I love this. It's so cool. I love all the freehand hippiness on the side, and it's got backboard. It's just cool. Yeah,
great
he painted
painting
it
on the windows.
Yeah, like it's the reflections of like the tree branch in the right hand one's really cool.
Yeah, and in the hubcap as well.
Mental. But he painted it for a local competition. So I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to go into that competition.
Do you know what? It'd be really interesting to find out if there's any particularly strong local scenes. Like I know from Heresy, there's Melbourne has a very strong Heresy painting group, and yeah, and obviously Stockholm has a reputation. Or you know that the Stockholm, certainly the GW shop, and then the guys from that and war paints and all that. But yeah, it'd be quite fun to find. Yeah, let us know in the comments or ping in if you know of any particularly outrageously talented groups of painters that just enjoy whopping it out and showing off on the regular at the stores.
It makes me want to do just something like there's no war scene, there's no guns, there's no violence. It's just half a VW camper van. It's quite serene. It's quite relaxing.
So I mean, it's no capybara in a lake with a butterfly on its nose, but it's close, right? If this was entered into World Model Expo then, or a competition like that, what category does this go in?
Painting.
Just general chill painting.
No, briefly, there's only really like two categories for fantasy, if you call this fantasy. Are you saying if it would be historical?
Would it go historical? Would it be sci-fi? Would it be?
It would be.
Where does this stuff belong?
So this is probably a wider topic, but honestly, because of the painting style, it probably wouldn't do that well in historical. So I'd be putting it in fantasy painting, right. And then I think that it would be appreciated. But, you know, it's non-metallic metal and more artsy style, and I don't know how much they love that in historical category, because you just got different judges. So the people judging fantasy would like this, so this would probably just be in fantasy painting. So
nice, good choice.
Very good, Matt. Nice one.
And as usual, guys, we'll put all the accounts of everything we feature down in the description, so you can go and check them out and follow them if you're not already. Nice one.
Because I was too busy at work to do it later.
Nice one. Right, what we got? You being greedy? You having a couple?
I've been greedy.
We're both double dipping.
It's it's been too long, and there's too much cool stuff. So I saw this actually on Facebook just yesterday. It's not done yet, but I'm just like,
that is incredible.
Very apt as well for some Skaven episodes.
That's what I thought. Full on wartime board.
Unreal. That is unreal.
There are some stunning wartime / fantasy RPG modular boards out there. There's one chap on the south coast in England. I can't think of their account, but it's very similar to this. All bespoke, multi-leveled. Just imagine playing games on this. It looks like something out of Vermintide, doesn't it? This one.
It's like the Facebook group that it's in is the foam modeling something. They're sort
foam sniffers.
Yeah, they're all about foam modeling and doing all that. And some of the stuff they put in there is just crazy. Like the terrain and scenery, it's just the realism. Like I was looking at bricks the other day, and I couldn't tell if it was real bricks or painted bricks until the guy put his finger in it and showed the scale. I was just like, okay, I get it now.
Love it. And the little sewers underneath. Oh,
yeah.
Just
all the houses. I think most of the houses have detailed interiors as well. So, yeah, just mad. I would pay money to play on that board.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But also it's quite like looking at it, it's not intimidating in the sense of like the scale of it is very impressive, but you can see everything, can't you? You can work it all out, right? How he's done it. And that's classic, really old school cardboard tiles for the roofs. The blue foam for the rest of it's probably scored with the pencils, right, for the wood grain. Biros for carving out the cobblestones and stuff, right? It's technique wise it's achievable. But that's the thing with these often, isn't it? Is that the real wow factor of this is his vision of the little harbour, isn't it? It's knowing how to build that and put that scene together, right?
And the volume of it, I think, like, because you do a building, you're like, cool. If I did 30 of these, it'd be nice. And then doing 30 of them is, no easy feat, is it? It's just,
but it looks like you could game on it as well, right? Because sometimes you see tables sometimes or bits like this, and you think it's an amazing diorama, but you're not gaming on that. But it's just the way it's put together.
If I remember the last post, it is intended for gaming. He wants to play more time on it. So, yeah, whoever's his friends are very lucky.
But yeah, I'll definitely follow that one for to see how that progresses.
And I don't know if you can see in the bottom left, there's like on that tile, I should have put another photo up, there's a underground sewer part.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Great pick. You're allowed to double dip when it's things like that.
Rich is away, so it's only fair, isn't it?
It's true. But it's little story, like, look, if you look bottom left, how one of the arches is boarded up. They're not just all bricked in. There's a hell of a lot of storytelling, isn't there? Me and Andy were talking about scenery the other day, and we're saying what one of the things with Games Workshop scenery, which is what we were talking about, is the level of detail on it sometimes is almost overwhelming. And if you were to paint all the detail, it would, if anything, be maybe a bit distracting to game on. And I quite like with this scratch built older style that it would just blend in, wouldn't it? It would create the background to the game. Don't get me wrong, I flipping love the plastic scenery we get from G-Dub, but
But if you're not going to build it yourself, that plastic terrain's amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely, and there's ways you can paint.
Can you beat it when you make it? Can you beat a thing like this? Probably not. But he's integrated some of it in the corner because you've got the mausoleum set, which is great, right? So pick and choose the bits you need from the G-Dub stuff.
Absolutely, and 3D printing, I guess, is a real boon for this type of thing, just for little bits like little dressing pieces, like sewer grates and doors and things like that.
You can see the sewer grate in the bottom left is 3D printed, and I think where's the chariot, the cart
the little
thing.
Cart. Yeah, really, really cool. Yeah, I'm gonna follow that one.
Nice.
Right.
So next up is
It's great, isn't it? This is my pick. So this is Danny. Maybe a tiny bit of bias because he's a sculptor of some of the Cult of Paint minis. He did the very famous Heerguard / the Woodsman. And I just think he's a brilliant sculptor. And we showed the paint job David Aroba did of this, but I think that the sculpt deserves its own, deserves to be shown off. I think he's amazing at faces. And obviously you can't zoom in on this, but if you go on his account and look at the face, it's just really cool. The expression's amazing. And yeah, it's, I don't know, it's basically the best Stormcast, isn't it?
Is he a ZBrush artist? Is that what he uses?
I don't know
which
program
ZBrush,
he uses, but I think so, but I wouldn't want to quote on it. But yeah, he's just great. I love all his stuff, and he's awesome to work with as well. He did my Tekla sculpt, so yeah, he's just fantastic.
It's things like, isn't it? We talk about it all the time, right? The art being amazing sometimes, and the miniatures don't always follow the art. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But this is a Stormcast, right? Like, this is cool.
Yeah,
it's you know because this is a direct homage, right, to the front cover of one of the books, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, very, very nicely done.
I love that.
I don't think that. Sorry, Matt, you go.
I was going to say, I love that on these bigger size stuff, you can really start to get the texture into the materials, like the metals.
But also things as well, like the votive strips, whatever they are, with the runes and things on. Like I think it's very hard, isn't it? Particularly in plastic, to get them looking.
That's organic. What I was going to say is you can't do this, can you? Really, for like the main. Basically, GW can't do figures to look like this because they need to think about. They need to be plastic. They need to be for gaming. And this is a display model, and it is very different. And it's also much larger scale. So Games Workshop can't really or shouldn't really do figures like this unless they're a separate thing, like this is a Stormcast display thing. That's something I'd love for them to do. It's
so
the problem
used to do.
Yeah, but do it good. Well, it was okay before. Do it properly.
Yeah,
where like.
I get you.
People go ahead and do this as fan art, and people are like, "Oh, can I buy this?" And obviously not, because it's illegal. So you can do a one-off. But I just think, I don't know, they're missing a trick here. Imagine if they hired one guy like Danny, and he was just knocking out 6 or whatever amazing sculpts a year.
I think the problem they would run into would just be the logistics of casting, because if you put that up on the Warhammer, on the Games Workshop website, tens of thousands of people would buy it.
But would it be any more than Forge World? Because you say tens of thousands, but most people, I think, are gamers. And I think you put it 75 mil, us lot and our friends would buy it.
Possibly.
But in general, it wouldn't sell like...
But there's two things, right? Exactly as you say, if you bang it out at 75, right, you're pricing this probably near £100, right?
Yeah.
What you have for the people that just want a cool figurine, essentially, is we're getting, aren't we, with the what's the brand called, McFarlane, and then the Bandai ones, right? So you're catering for those people with that. But I know you guys have had a little chat about it before. I remember on a previous episode, and I think that was the discussion, wasn't it? Was how is it? Why isn't it being done? And it's very hard for us to know, I guess, without knowing numbers and things.
We need a license.
I was going to say, just give us a license, and we'll sort
license
it. Right?
GW. We'll make.
I mean, they let people make onesies and shit. So
you saw their licensing revenue numbers that came out today.
No, I've never been someone. I mean, I don't own any shares in them, so I don't really care.
It's gone up. It's gone up quite a bit. They should do that. Definitely.
Well, let us do it. Let us make a bloody Stormcast, please.
Brian's making an interesting comment in the chat about he'd love them to bring back larger scale minis for things like Inquisitor. So actually bring back larger scale for gaming. And that's certainly when we created our two lines, the sci-fi and the fantasy lines. One of the reasons we chose 54mm is that we felt in the future it would allow us the opportunity to consider a game using them. You know, and as we've said many times, there's quite a few GW gaming miniatures that basically are 54mm models. So, you know, it's not it's not out there. I'd love to find out more about Inquisitor, the game, because it was so good. It occurred when I was out.
Was it though?
I loved it.
But I'd be interested in it as a project. Like, how did it get greenlit as a project? Like,
was it Andy Chambers?
It was really it's Gav Thorpe, wasn't it? I think, right. I've got the book because I love the Inquisition and all of that stuff, but I've never really looked into it from a why they did it. Because certainly back before I left the hobby, when a new game came out or whatever, White Dwarf was chock a block of interviews and articles with all the different designers, right, talking about their involvement, how it began, and why they'd done it, and all the rest of it. And I wonder if there was any of that with Inquisitor, because it'd be pretty cool to find out. What the deal was, why they thought, yeah, fuck it, let's do a 54mm sort of RPG game. Yeah,
get one of the OGs on, explain what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll jot that down. So you said you double dipped as well, right? That's what you're having.
Yeah.
What's number 2?
We had a mutiny, didn't we, Matt?
Yeah.
Said we're both double dipping. I think you'll like this one, Henry.
Well, I liked them all so far. It's going well. Oh, that's good, because I nearly picked this one as well.
Yeah.
It feels
you might actually.
It feels like a weekly amazing Magnus historical bust.
Well, it's every project.
It's mad, isn't it? Like, yeah.
It's one of the most convincing flame effects I've seen. Like, there's a fire near, but not really near. You know, I think it's really convincing.
It's so soft.
What I love about his work is that, as someone who is not particularly aware or ingrained in the historical painting scene or the bust painting scene necessarily, right, he makes it very accessible, because it's like you know who's painted that. And I've often wondered, we spoke about it, didn't we, with World Model Expo, with the historical stuff, is there room for artistic interpretation? But you and it's his lighting, isn't it? It's always his lighting is so good.
Yeah, this one in particular, that the left, his right cheek is amazing, really convincing. I like how it's not like in your face orange, you know. I think that's what does it for me so much. It's just the right amount of power and subtlety, and I've never seen anything like it, to be honest.
Yeah, big fan. And is Magnus involved in Nautilus? He is, isn't he?
Just a friend, and
just a friend.
I think he sculpted a mini and some painting.
Right. Because I had noticed them dropping a few things again recently. It's nice to see them back and doing stuff. But yeah, lovely.
Nice. I love how he's managed
the helmet's outrageous.
What's that?
Look how simple the helmet is, right?
I was just about to say.
In scale and real. I know it's real, obviously it's an object, but you know what I mean? Like genuinely realistic.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a lot of the same color palette across everything other than really the face, but everything stands out on its own, which is really
Wonderful.
Nice.
The orange on the black is tough. Like, how does fire affect black cloth? How does fire affect skin and dull things like that? And it's just
because that's interesting, right? Because it does read, doesn't it, as him looking into something on fire. And is the mark on his left cheek? No, it's a scar, isn't it?
Cut. Yeah, he's got a cut. So it looks like there's a soft light on his left, and then there's a stronger fire on the other side, and that must be so hard to balance, like crazy.
Very, very cool. But again, it's still stylistic in a sense, right? It's his. It's it's his work. I'd be really interested as well. Like, so this would go in historical, right?
Yeah.
Right.
He wins.
Maybe Magnus is a good one to get on to talk about that sort of stuff. Actually, I'll jot that down.
Definitely
Right.
need to do a historical special.
I'd love to. I've actually had a few people reach out after I mentioned that after World Model Expo to recommend a couple of artists. They were like, "Oh, if you want historical, legit, like check these accounts out." So
need someone who knows what they're talking about, though.
It's true. It's true. Turns out not all amazing painters are amazing talkers. So yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Right, that's the picks. Is there a meme?
No meme. That was a bit too spicy this week. Some of the memes.
Still nice. So
really?
I sort of
in
the meme sphere. I was shown one at the weekend. I was teaching a class over in Peterborough, and someone showed me one I hadn't seen before. From the period where the internet really found its groove. From the sort of Abaddon versus Gilliman tennis match, that kind of era.
It was Gaskell with the tennis ball launcher.
Yeah. And it's the Dark Eldar character. What's his name with the two?
An incubi.
The incubi, yeah. In a canoe. It was brilliant. Chuckle a lot. Anyway, right. So the main topic, the Loathsome Ratmen and all their vile kin. Skaven. We are all big fans of Skaven miniatures. If anyone follows Games Workshop, I'm sure a lot of you do. There's been some recent releases for them. An amazing Underworlds warband that I know you two are both big fans of. And then sort of complementary to that, well, very complementary to that, but sort of adjacent to that, they brought out a Deathmaster character as well with one of these recent big box new character release things. So it got me thinking when we were talking about different episodes to do. I obviously missed the last army episode we did on the Eldar when I was frantically trying to pull White Scars out my arse. For those 2 weeks, whereas and I missed it, and I love sort of nerding out about this side of things, and especially when I've got like a Golden Demon geek like Matt to talk about, encyclopedic knowledge of all the hottest versions of these miniatures. But also Skaven is something that I'm very fortunate to own most Skaven models from 1986 onwards, and there's something that's always really appealed to me. It was the first ever finished painted thing I ever had was a Skaven Blood Bowl team.
Oh wow.
I have an ever growing box in the attic waiting for the return of the old world for a new Skaven army and whatnot. So
when is that happening, by the way? Like, we got all those logos, but what's going on?
I mean, they said at the time, wasn't it like 3 years out or something when they showed us?
Right.
They said we don't know when it's going to come out, but it will come out at some point, basically. So
we think in 2024. Sorry to sidetrack.
I guess it all depends how big it will be, right? Because I think a lot of people are assuming we'll see a new 40k edition next year, right?
That's fine. Yeah, do that. I'm too busy at the moment for Old World 40k. Well,
yeah. So I'm really not sure. But Total War's been keeping us ticking over, and Vermintide and whatnot for the last 8 years or whatever it's been now. Since the end times. Of course, our little ratty friends have had a lot to do with the death of the old world as well in the lore. But one of the reasons I wanted to talk about them as well was the fact that they are a unique to Games Workshop fantasy race. In a largely sort of Tolkien-esque setting or Western fantasy, sort of low fantasy setting. The Skaven were one of the truly unique things in it, but also that they had one of the finest concept artists, sculptors, that we've known in our hobby, in Jez Goodwin as their creator, but also that therefore they've had 35 years, something like that, 36 years of development as a range, and there's not many other miniatures, right, that can say that. So I thought we'd just take a little trip through and have a natter about why we think they're so cool, why we think they're still so popular. Oh dear, the Bretonian chat's already popped up in the thing.
Oh no.
They'll be back soon, guys. Don't worry. It'll be all be okay. Don't worry. You'll be all right. Adam's currently debating picking up the new Underworld Skaven models to make a Mordheim warband.
Do it.
As are a billion other people, Adam. So do it.
That's why they made it.
Yeah, let's be honest.
We're not doing Mordheim. Have some Mordheim models.
Like, yeah, here's your Skaven. Here's your Witch Hunters. Love the rats. Good. There seems to be plenty of love for the rats in the chat. So that's, yeah, happy. John, I will absolutely cover that question if I remember to, and if I don't, bring it up again later. Right, let's get some slides up, Matt. So here we go. So like I was saying, we're going to do a tiny little history lesson here. So back in 86, I think it was 1986, Jez creates the Skaven, the Ratmen. They had shown up really briefly in Blood Bowl before this, I think in like a Citadel Journal or something, but then we got them as like a Warhammer Fantasy race, and they were basically a new Chaos faction. So the rats are kind of true Chaos, children of Chaos, if you will. But for a long time they didn't, that wasn't a thing to them. They didn't, not like, you know, the Beastmen and all of that. They're like the children of Chaos, blah blah blah, and then all your god worshippers, whatever. The rats just were, right? They had no idea it was anything to do with any of that. They were just this awesome ratty dudes having a great time. And you had Jez Goodwin, who I think this little excerpt, Matt, doesn't it talk about how he was at the time
he was still freelancing for Games
Workshop
at the time he created all this.
And as cool as that is, I think there's probably an element of most people were freelancing for GW at that time, so I wouldn't read too much into that.
I think it just goes to show how long ago it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with him.
And then he, obviously, Jez, if people aren't aware, as well as being a phenomenal and very influential sculptor, was also a great artist. So his sketchbooks you'll see around all the time, you know, and you just see everything from little scribbles through to really amazing pieces of artwork. And back in the day when you had Games Day and fests like that, sometimes you'd be able to go along and see, you know, these sketchbooks in the flesh, and you know, especially back before the internet, it was very exciting because you got to see a few little nuggets in there. Even our things like, what's the new squats that we got coming, Leagues of Votan. You know, there was some demiurge scribbles back in the 90s or whatever that we're only just seeing the light of day. And it's definitely felt the last few years GW have quite brazenly gone back to some of the earlier concepts, haven't they? And riffing off them, particularly with Chaos and the more grimdark stuff, so your Mechanicum and things like that. But yeah, so just, you know, he created all these, he literally concepted the race from the background through to all these different characters, and then started sculpting the models. Now, I'm not going to talk, and we're not going to chat too much about old Hammer Skaven, so your stuff from the sort of 80s into the early 90s, because that's not where my nostalgia is. Basically, I own every single one of them, and they are super cool. But I do appreciate now that actually old Hammer, for a lot of people, is more 90s. You know, even early noughties now. I mean, for Matt, it's back 2015, right? That's sort of anything before then is truly ancient. But so I'm going to talk more about that sort of middle Hammer era. So the 90s, that's when I was into Muscaven and stuff. But it's worth saying that. And then you had, oh gosh, what was the guy's name? Tony Ackland. Does that sound right, Matt? Artist? Yeah. Tony Ackland did some really cool early Skaven artwork as well. So it was a very exciting time, right? You had this brand new company that were quite successful quite quickly with world building and creating things. So I imagine as a place to be involved in, 80s G-Dub was probably a heap of fun, you know. But you may recognise a few of these sketches as well that literally just became the miniatures as well. So that Warlord there, bottom right.
He's amazing.
The clan rat we saw on the page before gets that bottom right, very, very faithful representation. And then the lad, the Skaven, Globadier lad on the bottom left. You can still buy that model. It's the second iteration of him, admittedly, but you can still buy that model, and I think it's older than Matt. So yeah, it's just stood the test of time, right? That's, I mean, it's early 90s.
91.
It's early
probably
90s.
Exactly the same as me.
So yeah, so there's a super brief sort of little history of them in that sense. If you would like to deep dive into them, there are amazing resources online for Old Hammer, Middle Hammer, Warhammer artwork as well. Actually, what's the Facebook group, Matt? That's all well into the artwork. Is it Old Hammer Art or something like that?
Old Hammer, Old Hammer artwork.
Yeah, well worth a look up if you dig that kind of thing.
Now, I've been thinking about this for a while, but you see this banner got this symbol on this artwork.
Yeah.
If you look at the Leviathan drill, before you've built it and you put the metal.
Oh yeah.
It's got this symbol.
Yeah, it does. It's bang on.
Yeah. Did you notice that?
Yeah. I did exactly that.
Skaven palm.
Yeah, exactly that. So speaking of art, and again, I think even things like that symbology, right? Again, it's ingrained in you, right? That symbol, and that's because it's got 30 years of it being around, right? Unless you came into Warhammer in like 1983 or whatever the fuck it was, Warhammer's not existed without this, and it's the same for the Khorne, the Khorne symbol, the Nurgle symbol, the Tzeentch symbol and stuff. But yeah, speaking of artwork, you'll know we're all huge fans of Mark Gibbons. We had him on many episodes ago. We should definitely get him on again. I think it's been long enough now. And the guys over at Rookery Publishing as well, that RPG they created is going great guns. So yeah, if you dig his art, go check it out. But yeah, the Jez models and the Mark Gibbons artwork really cement the look of the Skaven, right, in the 90s. And that's what we'll get for years to come. There's Ikit Claw, my favourite Skaven character.
We got Daz's paint job of that was amazing as well, wasn't it?
Mm. And you can see what the Skaven were able to do as well was bridge that fantasy sci-fi thing as well. They brought in mechanical,
tech, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which I think, if you've come into Warhammer Fantasy via Age of Sigmar, you're like, oh, well, that's normal. That's, lots of the races have metal and tech and all this kind of thing, but it certainly wasn't like that. And the Skaven stuff was basically run on electricities on warpstone, so it's a bit like Tesla and all that. So it's pretty cool.
Like Elon Musk on Lightning.
Yeah, right. This is basically ratty Elon Musk.
The Elon Musk
you're looking at now.
Best memes, actually. You not seen them?
Yeah.
Horrible. This art's the one I remember the most.
So good.
Again, looking at models you can still buy. Yeah, the second iteration of the plague sensor bearers. I believe you can still get.
Makes them scary because you got the smoke. You kind of imagine the poison that they're spreading and how nasty these things are. Because you can gloss over the model and be like whatever. But when I look at this, I think that's a spiky ball full of plague. That is mental.
So this was something I wanted to talk about actually with them, and I think the orcs suffer from it a little as well sometimes. Is the Skaven on one hand can be viewed as comic relief, right? And then just as you said there, on the flip side, they're truly horrific. Like, they're rats. The whole plague thing is doubled down upon in a lot of it. The whole story of them not existing, in the Empire because they're too scary to talk about. And I think with the miniatures, particularly in the 90s, you were more limited, right, by what you could show. But, it was very much that one plane of sculpting. Everything's like this, like that. You can only make them look so evil, right? So malevolent or whatever. But in the artwork, you could show a lot more. And I don't know if I sent you any sort of modern Skaven artwork or not, Matt, but there's some really creepy, horrific stuff started coming in that period when you got like Adrian Smith, Paul Dainton, Karl Kopinski, those guys in. And then, the end times, and then even more so now, they've really, the models, if anything, have become more comical, but the artwork has gone far more sinister. Which is interesting, I think, anyway. To give you those scopes, you could do a pure comedy Skaven thing if you wanted, but you could certainly lean into. And I felt the most recent Underworlds Warband and the Deathmaster, they feel like they've gone more towards the sinister stuff, right? Elon Muskrat.
Yeah, sorry. I know. I've just seen the Doomfire wheel, the Tesla version. That's just cracked me up. I couldn't help but laugh at that. Is it called the Doomfire wheel? What's it called?
The Doom wheel. Yeah.
Doom wheel. Yeah, Tesla Doom wheel. Someone make that into a meme.
So yeah, I thought that was it's more so, I think, than a lot of the other races. That whole Grimdark versus the miniatures is quite far apart a lot of the time. And I don't mind that at all. We'll come on to it shortly when they got a big redesign, as it were, or refresh, whatever you want to call it, evolution, when Seb Herbert sort of took the reins with them in the 2008, 2009, something like that, mid noughties. And we went on to this different style. Actually, what's the next slide, Matt? That might help me remember why.
Next one.
Oh, cool. So here we go. This is your real the proper heyday of G-Dub. It's really finding its feet. We're still on green bases. White Dwarf is the only way to consume, basically. You haven't got the internet or anything like that. We got Citadel Journal, but that's even more niche. And yeah, you've got the Doom Wheel there, back from the 90s. There he is, old Elon, sat on top. And then you've got the Vermin Lord. So the Vermin Lord, they recently did a print on demand, didn't they? Old school Skaven. Were there any models in there you particularly wanted to get hold of?
I've still got a metal one because I didn't really appreciate the model until Joe Tomaszewski did the tutorial. Do you remember that? It was a heavy metal one. And he sculpted a new tail for it. And it was in the White Dwarf follow-on series, and he did an amazing new paint job of it, really modern paint job. And I just thought it was incredible. So yeah, I ordered my metal Vermin Lord. Of course, nice. I never followed the tutorial, but I wish I did. It was awesome. Yeah, it really modernized the paint job of that metal model.
I mean, and still the head on is still cool.
It's great.
You do need to pin that right hand.
Do you?
Yeah.
I think you need to pin everything, basically.
I like how the
enough glue you could get away with it right back in the day, but you did have to pin that hand. And then you've got the clan rats at the bottom, right? And we talk about this a lot. The thing that I think draws a lot of people, certainly us, into collecting an army or wanting to do it is when your core line troop is a wicked model. And that, me and Andy often talk about, we like to build our armies with that core troop right in there. And they went through an evolution. You had the single pose kit for a long time in the 90s. Most of the armies got a single pose model, and the Skaven clan rat, as we saw earlier, just spot on next to that piece of artwork. Then you had this period. So this is when I was on hobby sabbatical, and you had the we talked about it many episodes ago, Warhammer Fantasy going into 5th edition and 6th edition. The tech really moved on, and they were able to start producing multi-part plastic kits. And what you got for Fantasy was most of the races got a multi-part core unit. And that was these affectionately known as monkey rats, I believe. Due to the hands being quite large.
All I can see in that picture is hands. They're just massive.
So
They
this
look like
is,
they're holding a pint of beer.
they do. This is your more time era as well. So if you like those models, this is the aesthetic you're getting. This is the look that you're getting with them. So still very much recognisably Skaven, but a change. You know, not just in the fact they're multi-part. You're getting a bit more of that character, I think, into them, which they're able to. This would have been when you were in it, right, Andy? Is that right?
Yeah, to be honest, and we'll talk about it when it comes up, but I never really liked Skaven. So I only have like an affection to the old Mark Gibbons art because I used to like seeing them being, oh, they're cool. But as a kid, I was never into them. You know what I was into when I was a kid? It was just the Wood Elves and the High Elves, basically. And I looked at the Ratmen, and I was like, well, they'd be cool to go against, but I'm never going to do them. But later when we talk about it, I've grown to really like them now, and I paint them now. But back then, I just wasn't really interested. So this era was just a no for me, to be honest. And it's yeah, I like the really old stuff. I love the Vermin Lord, and I like the funny stuff like the Doom Wheel. But
so sort of pre this era, right? Of one. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, right? Because this is the era when the artwork suddenly ratcheted up from quite comic style, right, to other artists coming in and
the army book was amazing. The cover for this era army book was fantastic.
Well, and I believe the boxes of this time, it used to be the artwork on the front. It wasn't miniatures. They still thankfully put the miniatures on the back, which a lot of other companies even now could benefit from doing the same rather than just.
You need to warn people about these hands. You're not going to buy them once you see the hand.
Just had a massive nostalgia kick with the name of the paints.
Yes,
just saw those.
Absolutely. I mean, I was going to mention, but the name of the paint they've used for painting the skin must upset a few people. It's all right. Well, I was thinking more elf flesh, but we don't.
We're everywhere.
They are everywhere. So this was that, and then I think the next slide should be the newest Clan Rats. Is that right, Matt? Yeah, lovely. So this kit came out, I don't know, about 10 years ago now. Maybe a touch more,
That's
actually.
Really good.
It would be a touch more because it would have come out around Island of Blood when, as I said, when Seb Herbert sort of took the reins and reimagined the look. And this is where, so I came back in around this time, and I just joy, pure joy. This is one of the things that I don't mind painting 100 of, right? If you're going to paint a Horde army, you've got to love the minis. And for me, they're just, it's that they are cute. I think there's quite a lot of cuteness there, but I don't mind that. As I say, I've got grimdark art to amuse me and entertain me in that sense. The minis, I enjoy the fact that as a Skaven general, you don't really know how that game's going to go. You know, you have as much idea as your opponent how effective things are going to be. And the fact that you can blame your general, you know, when they pop another chunk of warpstone or whatever and blow their head up.
Of, like random characteristic rolls and stuff, didn't they? Just random
and the fact
cataclysmic damage.
They're absolutely like buzzing off their tits on warpstone, and they're just pounding it. It's great. Like in the stories, in the novels and the short stories and stuff, they've always got like a little pouch, like the Grey Seers have like a little pouch of warpstone, basically Coke. They have a little pouch of Coke, green Coke, and whenever they're a bit worried and they squirt the musk of fear, which any Skaven fans will be aware of, they'll just have a little pinch of dust and everything will be okay.
Moorish, this warp line.
Yeah. So bit of sherbet. That's a good point. Someone's mentioned in the chat as well. Forge World as well dabbled in a few Skaven miniatures, and actually they really did go down the grimdark route with those sculpts. You had things like the Brood Horror. You had their uptake, or their take rather, their update on the Vermin Lord, much scarier, big chonky rat.
It's a bit like the Avatar of Kane, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Before G-Dub got around to a plastic one, you had the Forge one for years, and then you got your plastic Avatar and Vermin Lord. But it was kind of cool to get that Forge World take for a while, I think.
It was, right. And there's, as I said, those models felt much more influenced by the artwork that we had at the time. Which Raven Skaven, that's it, Phil. Just having the best time. So that's sort of, I think a great way of looking at the evolution of the army, if we just look at its core troop, right? And big changes. So I think, Matt, does this bring us on to sort of newish Skaven stuff? I can't remember the order. Oh, there you go. There's your new Doom wheel. So Elon has moved inside now. Egg cap ratings and everything came in, crumple zones and whatnot. So he's had to move inside the wheel. It's just as a fan of this army, this thing's perfection to me, like visually.
It's just madness, isn't it?
If you want to, it's people like, oh, what a Skaven. You're like, give me a second, and then you just plonk that down. I think they'd get it. Which yeah, is always a good sign to me. You like high elves are. Here's some, haughty-taughty elf on a horse with his big helmet. Shiny, and you're like, lovely. I get it. I get who they are. And then you show them this, and they're like, oh, if you want a good time, you're getting on board with the rats. So yeah, and again, it was a. I think one of the things we found, and we haven't really talked about this that much, is as the miniatures ranges have progressed, the painting style from heavy metal it feels like that's progressed at almost on a different schedule. But this was one of those times where I think there was a fairly new team in, and you had, Seb Purba, a hot sculptor, as it were, really coming up and being given charge of a whole range at this time. I just think it was a very good marriage at the time. Do I like the Mortian Tanks Cyber Rats range? No, I do not personally.
Nah.
But whatever. 40k Skaven Rat Ogres with prosthetics. Yeah, well, we'll be getting on to Rat Ogres.
I'm not a fan of them.
Prosthetics in a minute. But I could have chosen the Screaming Bell as well, I think, as a good example, right, of that evolution. But Skaven definitely benefited, I think, from plastics.
Are we talking about the new Vermin Lord later? Or shall I talk about
I think he might be up. He might even be the next slide. There we go.
Right.
So this is Screech Vermin King, one of the 6 different Vermin Lords I think you can build from that plastic kit.
That was so confusing for me. That was one of the first kits where I didn't get that they're all listed separately on the website. And I was like, how many different things can you build? I was just picking my favourite, to be honest.
Yeah.
My favourite one.
But this guy felt like the natural sort of successor. He's got the half skull, exposed skull face on him, like the original.
I think it's an amazing miniature, and it's one that I'd like to know the year it came out, because I think it was the year I wasn't hobbying.
So did this come out with the relaunch, or did this come out nearer the? I think this might have come out nearer the end times, didn't it?
I think it was during
2012.
The end times,
yeah. So if it was end times, it would have been not even 10 years ago. Would have come out literally just before you got back in, then, Andy. Like maybe months before.
Yeah, I think it kind of passed me by, and then I look at the model now, and I'm like, why didn't I ever pay attention to that when it was released? Like, I think I would paint one. It's just super cool. The Corruptor's the one I like, which is kind of like this build, and he's got the little scythe in his hand. He's got a pair. Yeah, he's got a pair of hand sickles, and slightly fewer horns and a full skull face. Really cool. But they're all brilliant. Was it one of the first kits where you could build a lot of different things from it?
But I think this would have come out, if my memory serves me right, a similar time to when we got the Bloodthirster. The what we think of as the new Bloodthirster, which of course you could build 3 variants from.
This was 6.
Yeah, it's pretty mad, right? And I would say probably 3 of those are fairly unique.
Yeah.
Some of them, the silhouettes it's not a million miles away from each other, right?
The tail's a bit similar and all. Like, I think a few more tail options would be cool. But hey, it's a great kit.
But yeah, and again, a 10-year-old kit or whatever, and it's still superb.
The standout in the range for me.
It's very, very, very. I imagine a nightmare to play with, like just constantly jabbing your hands.
Transporting.
Oh God, there's got to be worse these days. No, transport's fine. Yeah, you're worrying about nothing.
Transport's as long as you're willing to carry around an enormous. But then Skaven players have never worried about logistics when it comes to transporting enormous things. Yeah, people in the chat saying it's end time. So you had Glotkin, Nagash, and this wasn't the only cool Skaven model that we got. Of course, we got Thanquol, who, if you are a fan of the background, he appeared in a lot of stories. He was Gottrek's sort of arch nemesis, and Thanquol was just a perfect representation of Skaven. Right, it was never his fault. He was always, let down or betrayed by others, and he's made it through into the Age of Sigmar as well through his schemings. He's still around.
Ooh, I love that model on the top.
I think here he is. So have we got the old Thanquols, Matt?
Yeah,
we do, don't we? Yeah, here we go. So this would have been your Thanquol when I got in. That's his Rat Ogre Bone Ripper there. And much like Ripper. Santa's Little Helper, there were many Bone Rippers. So when he died, the next one was also Bone Ripper, and so on and so forth. So that's an older model with a newer-ish paint job. So here's your different Bone Ripper.
Wow.
And your same Thanquol? Yeah, I think your same Thanquol there. Yeah,
similar.
So yeah, as a character that's been fleshed out, a special character, and the Skaven have been quite fortunate to have very, very well established special characters that are still here now and are still getting new miniatures, which is pretty awesome. And yeah, straight onto the new one of the new. So you've got the alternate build, of course, of this as well, where he's got his big flamey hands, because this was that time when GW had got into modeling smoke on things. So you had Nagash with the spirits, didn't you? And you had Skaven with all the smoke and things coming off it, which, if I remember, was quite a polarizing thing when it happened. Because it really stood out, because there weren't many models in the range, were there, that had it.
I think the answer is when they did like Typhus, where you could option it and it just stuck on the top. I think that is the best way to do it. And I must admit that I was not a fan, but I think now I like all that added stuff, because like with the artwork, with the old smoke ball, just doesn't really do enough without it. But imagine if you sculpted that smoke spiraling around it and things like that. I think it's down to the paint job of those things as well. I remember when Max did the orc guy who had the smoke coming out of his thing. The shaman. Yeah, the shaman, and I think he did such a good paint job of that smoke. I was like, if you can paint it right, then it really adds to the look and the feel. So, and there's Nick just in the chat making sure that to bring truth to that last comment of modelled smoke is the worst. So it's still quite polarizing, the effects. I like it,
but what it certainly feels to me now is that it's the norm. Whereas back when this dropped, it was unusual. So
good on him for pushing forward.
Absolutely. John reminded me of the question that I absolutely hadn't forgotten. We've gone through the old minis and new. How do you think having old minis like Skrulk and Ikit Claw fit in with the newer minis? Are they a fun source of heritage, or do they hold the range back a bit? Well, Claw got a newish one. Claw certainly got a Seb Pervert era model, although of course he's not. I say of course, he's Ikit Claw no longer exists. He's just a master.
Generic,
master. There you go, Matt. There's our first Bitcoin spam.
It's coming up.
It's been a while.
Bitcoin.
I think they're quite busy at the minute. So fun source of heritage. So this is an interesting one, John. Like we've talked about it before as well. When a range is not consistently sculpted, and in the past that used to perhaps mean that you had multiple sculptors sculpting for a range, right? And not communally. They would, Bob would sculpt the clan rats, and Dave would sculpt the pestilence, plague monks, and this, and sometimes you would end up with a sculpture you really liked, but they wouldn't do all of the army. Now I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but now I believe that most of the armies are designed by a sort of head designer, and then a team work across all the models, right? Is it unusual now to get just one person do the entirety of a mini? Do you know?
I don't really know, definitely. But then, right. I always like to ask questions to the sculptors. But I think it does depend on the project. I think some can sketch out like entire things and set things, and I don't really know. I think it's probably different on the project, and I think it'd also be really different if they're starting the range from scratch. I think with like the Deepkin, like it feels like secondhand information, but I remember being told something like Seb roughly sculpted like the range and got other people to finish it, but that was a new range that from scratch, the Deepkin. So it's probably different when you've got something super established, and then different again if you've already got existing files, right? Like
I was going to say that the CAD must make a huge difference to it, right?
If you add one Primaris kit, that's got to be totally different to if you redo something that was only in trad, or do a whole new range. So it's got to be wildly different.
And that's exactly where I was hoping it would end up. To answer John's question, is I think the issue arises less and less nowadays, right? But when a range has traditional sculpting still in it, because marrying trad and CAD is very rarely successful, I think, particularly with more organic miniatures. Space Marines are Space Marines, not the end of the world, Eldar, things like that, but given a thing. But how do they fit in the range? I am waiting and looking forward to getting pestilence models that look like the rest of the Skaven. Eshin models, which we sort of got now through Underworlds and stuff, Eshin models that look like Skaven. And that's why I say I've been slowly collecting this Old World Skaven project now since the end times. And every time we've had a new Skaven for release for AOS or whatever, it goes up in the box to be turned into Old World stuff, because it's of that same design language for them. So it's tough. There's not many left now, though, is there? Not many ranges now where
they're chipping away.
There's a lot of ranges are in their second or third iteration of CAD sort of releases, aren't they? So again, Skaven have done very well. If you've loved the characters, since you were a kid, and you're now no longer a kid, you've been able to collect them. They've grown up with you. It's like people that liked, what's his name, Harry Potter, right? They grew up with him. I just grew up with rats. So I think what's the next one? But
Deathmaster.
Here we go. So speaking of iconic,
the face is so good.
Here he is. Go on, Matt. I'll have a drink.
There you go. Into the 3 iterations.
Oh, they're all great. The mid one is really great as well.
Yeah, and as we will see in a minute when we look at sort of Skaven that have been painted as entries to competitions, the Deathmaster Snitch bottom left there got picked a lot. There was a period, about 2010ish, something like that, maybe a bit later, in White Dwarf, where they did a series of like models of legend or something they called it, where the various designers would pick their standout model of ever.
They'd nominate, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they'd nominate.
Else,
and this,
they'd be like Brian Nelson.
Yeah, Deathmaster Snitch made it as a nomination. And it was such a brilliant article to read. I remember the designer talking about how the you know, the way the 3 blades were like the throwing star and the points were still like the Skaven symbol, and yeah.
Also, it's a great example of a 2-dimensional model looking incredible, because the silhouette is probably the best out of the 3. Even though it's that old school.
It's a great paint job on that one, isn't it? And obviously the top, we've got the original Deathmaster Snitch. And bottom right is not Snitch, but certainly a Deathmaster. Snitch bit it in the end times. Is the new creepy, sinister, Max's new baby.
So good. I love it.
So it's on the painting desk.
Yeah,
but, we'll see how that goes.
It's I'm expecting to see a few of these later in the year.
Yeah, I've seen some.
And this, of course, is the one I talked about at the top of the show. So this was the recent release that they got in that army box. Echoes of Doom. Yeah, that was them, wasn't it? Versus the Trees.
It's really annoying that
we liked that box, didn't we?
We were very happy with that box. Rats and Trees. Me and Andy were more than happy.
What annoying for us, Matt. What are you on about?
I only wanted one model out of it.
We wanted it all.
Mate, can never have enough rats.
Yeah, we did good out of that box, didn't we?
Yeah, we certainly did. So this is possibly their most iconic character. I think, again, as I said earlier, with the Doom Wheel being this is Skaven. Actually, that's incorrect of me. That is one facet of Skaven, right? You could go the Pestilence route and show them, and people go, "Oh, cool, I get it." And equally, you could show them this route, couldn't you? And you'd be like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." So they're sort of a bit Asian inspired. They're a bit, they're sneaky. They're that and the other, and I love the fact that the only thing that would have made me happier is if his tail maybe had been clutching the blade. But I get it. It's not Snitch. I get it, right? And the fact that his tail is still bladed, it's cool, it's grim. I dig it. And they give him different weapons. But
still got the triangle star.
That's it, right? All three of them have still got that triangle thing, haven't they? You know?
Very cool.
I don't know. It's really nice to see see something that was original from GW, through nearly 4 decades of evolution. And it must feel very exciting as a sculptor that has probably grown up with it all to get the opportunity to work on such an iconic range. Daunting, I imagine, as well. But
love to know the sculptor, actually.
Absolutely. And that's something everyone needs to keep feeding back to Games Workshop, that we want to see and hear from the creatives more. Absolutely.
Apart from if it's the Forge Space Wolves, because then the hate mail will come in.
I think that person's gone anyway, so we don't have to worry about it, do we? Right, what's the next slide? Oh, there we go. Tiny bit of nostalgia. So this was it. Games Workshop, Wolverhampton. I went in, bought this box, had a painting lesson, and the dude showed me how to paint the thrower in 30 minutes in the old base coat wash, done. And I say they were the first thing I ever finished.
How did you manage that without contrast?
This team, I know, right? And then you had the mutants as well. And I remember, many happy days playing my best mate at Blood Bowl, as I still do. But yeah, so it's like he one time he took the crowd through a rock and killed him. It wasn't good. But just occasionally, they are so fucking fast. They were a brilliant team. And yeah, so this box here is the reason I wanted to do the podcast tonight. Really was a bit of nostalgia. The next slide box was sort of what made me think about it. Was that cool?
I like the old packaging more.
Yeah.
The big fists.
But there they are, 30 years later, reimagined in plastic and a totally different take. And even Blood Bowl itself, that's probably another show, is evolving still. So yeah, I think the Rats were the first team outside the main box to get the release. Maybe them and the dwarves, I think. So, but I was very, very happy, and a lot of Skaven fans were very happy, and a lot of gutter runners and night runners were converted using this set, because again, it gave us more Eshin looking rats that fitted with the modern take on Skaven. Right, so that's enough of me waffling, as ever. And I thought we'd close the section out with looking at and talking to you guys particularly about why you think Skaven minis seem to be so popular as single miniature or squad level entries for painting competitions.
Because of this piece.
Let's have a look.
I think this piece made Skaven popular for Golden Demon, to be honest. I genuinely think it did. I think this is when Max was still working in the store, and he didn't come out of nowhere, but he came in and won the open category, which is no mean feat. And everyone's like, who's this like store guy who's winning the open category? And there's a few things I took from this, and I've not painted a Skaven ever, but it was the level of detail on the rock where I went, whoa, that's the level of detail you have to do to win Golden Demon on every rock. I was like, and you read the article on Stockholm Warpaint, and it was brilliant reading that. Just, I think what inspires me the most in general is not necessarily specific things people have done, but I think when we did the expo thing, I said Albert influenced me a lot, and it's not because I want to do the dwarf like it. It's not that, but it's like the passion and the effort and the detail, and it makes you go, I need to put that level of detail into my pieces. And he's just thought of all this stuff, like the little bone in the water, the key bits of hay, and all these little bits.
And the resculpted tails on all the little rats.
It's just a lot of work.
Because they're two rats from Island of Blood, but there's so much conversion going in there.
Yeah.
Like the ninja dagger things, they're not from, I can't remember which ones they're from, but it's from like not the Night Haunts. Was it from one of the Spirit Hosts or something like that? Wasn't it? Yeah. And just like it looks like it belongs.
Yeah.
It just works so well.
I would love to know sculptors' reactions, particularly like, say, Jez in this case, who had created Skaven, right? I would love to see their reactions when they see pieces like this. To see where it's come, what other people have taken your work and what they've done with it.
I'd love to see it in person.
Yeah, it's amazing.
To October, please, Max.
It is amazing. I think we have a couple more, don't we?
Do the latest,
and thanks very much for getting hold of this.
This is unbelievable in real life. We went to the contrast paint thing, and Max was there one day, and he brought this along. And when you see it in real life, it's another, like I said, it's another one of those things that was really influential for me, because I was like, you don't look for the Space Marine with the biggest flag and do it all like shiny chrome. That's not how you have to win a Golden Demon or do a fantastic piece. It's irrelevant of what it'll win. But this was just astounding how detailed, how good it was. And like for me, I look at Skaven and go, well, there's no like face to show off on, and there's no armor to show off on. But this is showing off on rock and cloth. And it's just
and composition as well, right?
Yeah, it's everything. And again, just level of detail. But that green, the texture in it is just absurd. How good it is! It's so fine, so detailed. There's so much effort,
and it's tiny. Yeah, this thing is tiny.
It's a miniature, a real miniature. It's none of this big, massive, crazy piece. Oh my god, it's a small miniature, and the detail in it is incredible.
I think that's
correct use of freehand.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about the pieces Max does is he doesn't do these huge, like vast pieces. They're always quite, restrained and controlled in small,
tasteful.
Yeah, it's just great.
They are, and not to nosh off Max too much, but like it's exciting to see miniatures that have clearly influenced heavy metal that we're seeing now. So if we bring back the Deathmaster, you can see where someone who's in a position like Max to drive heavy metal and see where it goes. You can see how it's influenced that take, right? We're going to see some ridiculous Deathmasters, aren't we, at the end of the year? Like, it's inevitable. Has to be, surely. I mean, Matt, I don't know if you've included any slides or not, but anyone who's been following you on socials will have noticed you painting some sewers.
Yeah, I got
some sewer walls.
Got some sewer things going on.
What's made you want to do it?
It was Max's entry.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a squad, but it's ended up as a diorama.
It's a squad if you want, mate.
Nah, it's. I'll go diorama. It's too big now.
I'm going squad, mate. So that's all right by me.
But yeah, it was. It was the. I'm making a video about it. I'll talk about it in the video that I'm making, and it's heavily inspired by Max's piece.
I think this has got to be the best Skaven miniature, right?
Yeah, it's
paint job.
I do love I suppose the paint job is it's the faded sleeve. I think probably my favourite element. I love it when people put faded paintwork on stuff. Faded paintwork. It's just
I love the Pestilence logo.
It's
just good.
Just very, very, very well.
It's never been on display, has it, in Warhammer World? Because it's not a job for a box art. You don't get to see it. So I was just going to say, I feel quite lucky to have seen this in hand.
So again, email Games Workshop. Tell them you want to see these miniatures more. You want to see what the guys and girls are working on.
It's in because he did it for an heavy metal challenge, I think. It's in one of the White Dwarf issues, like January 20-something. Can't remember.
Nice.
He's on his post.
I suppose it's Instagram, isn't it? We've got a couple more, I think, before we close it out.
This was quite a cool, funky, different take.
Really cool take. Really cool.
Steve, though, isn't it?
It is. Who's speaking of tasteful? Like I think that's a good way to describe Steve Pye as a sculptor and a painter. But going back to what I mentioned a little while ago, how Eshin. So one of the people that don't know, Skaven have a bunch of different clans. One of the Pestilence is the plaguey one we just saw, and Eshin is the sort of the assassins basically, and they haven't really had new models until the Deathmaster. So when you saw this, which was talking around polarizing sort of designs, we got the Night Haunts, right, which just ratcheted up the whole ethereal smoke and all that sculpted effects, right? And Steve's used them to create some Eshin, and it's not just sticking them on rat legs and stuff, right? It's using the idea that they are in smoke and they are in shadow and they are, it's. I just hope we get models that look a bit like this. Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
This is how you
I can wait. Yeah.
This is how you do that smoke effect right as well.
Like, it's brilliant. Like the whole Eshin background was that they went off and trained in Cathay, which was sort of the Far East, basically analogous to the Far East, and to become assassins, and all of this. And it's just it's so cool. You sort of get that vibe, almost like a smoke bomb, right? And they come out the smoke bomb and
ninjas.
And the different weapons, the different ninja-inspired weapons. Yeah.
Steve's annoyingly good, isn't it? It's just
exceptional. Yeah.
His sculpting, like, I don't know, the stuff he does. I'm like, who did that? Steve Pye.
He's very delicate as well, isn't he? Like, it's just, yeah.
think a
Always
lot of the-
remember his Celestine, right? Like
Mhm.
he sculpted Celestine, then you see him paint one as well, and you're just like, "I'll get out of it." Crazy.
Love it. Love, 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 love.
So I think I've got 2 more of these.
Oh, this was fab. Yeah.
Oh yes, this was that range that I think Brian Nelson spearheaded, where all the factions started to get a clan pack character, plastic character. So
Great
talk about
competition.
evolution, right? So this was where plastics had evolved again to where they could do a small sprue that was a character. And yeah, this is just storytelling, and yeah, I can't explain how much I love modern Skaven minis.
When are you going to do one? Do one for Patreon.
Tell you, I have so much noise in my head about what to work on.
do.
With work, I've got to do this for this video. I have so much peace and clarity when it comes to whenever that old world comes out. Like, this is nothing. It's like, oh, the Kislev models might be great. Oh, the Catherine models, it doesn't
I'm
matter.
going to make you paint
I have
Skavens.
1 billion rats upstairs to do. I was working on the test schemes just today, alongside something else for a video, just sort of looking at little shortcuts of how I could paint hundreds of clan rats and not lose my mind.
Contrast.
Contrast did feature quite heavily, yes. Yeah, in that. Also, I have such a hard-on for when people stick arrows in shields and things. So good. Like, it's so simple but so cool. But yeah, of course, being Skaven, the chances were that would have been another rat taking the arrow rather than.
Yeah, he's holding it behind him to protect the guys shooting.
I like to think he's turned around shouting at his lads as to why they're being so pathetic, and he's
shoot this way, not at me,
accidentally
you
got
knob.
shot. But yeah, that's a very cool middle. I recognise that painter's name.
He sculpts for GW now, Philip. He did the Imperial Guard Tyrannid diorama that he spent 5 years on.
That spent years on, yeah.
Another Stockholm war paint.
Yeah. Someone was saying they met Max when he used to work in GW Stockholm, and he seemed like a really nice dude. So, yeah, I think he is a really nice dude. So,
and
what's we got left? One more?
Last one, probably one of my favourite Skaven things of all time.
Yes. And this was it, right? I think this was in that article, wasn't it? The of the best evers. Yeah. Yeah.
I used to love Keith's stuff. I actually did the Nurgle Lord on the. Do you remember that one on the horse? And he had the half tentacle arm.
Yep.
I loved that mini, and he did this brilliant paint job. And the green was using that foundation green. I can't remember what it was, but I loved that. I'm following that. It's one of the only guides I actually did, and it was Nurgle. Can you believe it? Things have changed.
I love it. I love the white hood.
Mm.
It's like the bright car. It's just, yeah. Right. So before I start daydreaming about what I want to do, rats, let's close it out and look at what Paint Cult's been up to. But I hope everyone's enjoyed that sort of little meander through Skaven and me gushing a little bit about them.
We could have done another hour, couldn't we? Really?
Yeah. And but equally, I'm very much looking forward to seeing your rats, Matt, and how they come out. So yeah, exciting.
Can give a quick. Let me just turn this on.
Oh wow! I didn't know you had this technology.
This is happening live.
There you go.
Oh my goodness!
Got a little rope. Made a little pulley system that Will sort of suggested live on Twitch the other night, and I just bashed it together.
That is really amazing. Show that the see-through hole is the best bit. That is absolutely wonderful.
Hang on, come off, you little. You got your Death Master. Just pops in there.
It is
amazing, Matt. It is
so good.
amazing.
I had to buy 2 because I screwed one up.
I do that all the time.
That's something Andy can sympathise with. Yeah.
Yeah, I just ordered 2 now at the start. I'm on 2 tacklesses, put it that way. That's fantastic, Matt. I'm really excited to see that.
Going to be great, mate.
I'm actually happy with the painting as well. Like, that's a major achievement.
That's really nice. And you're posting a fair bit about this, aren't you, over on your account?
Yeah. Well, we've only got
so you want to follow it. 8 weeks, is it? Something like that?
66 days.
I'm not in it. I don't care this time. It's a fantastic feeling. I'm like, you have a good time.
Right. Should we
Stroll
get
down
Old
Hammer Lane?
Yeah, let's do that.
It was indeed. So yeah, hopefully it's not the last time we look at the rats. Now, Paint Cultist, hashtag Paint Cultist. If you're on Instagram, go give it a follow. It will expose you to a myriad of accounts that you possibly don't follow already. There's a vast array of different types of models, different types of paint styles. It's wonderful. There's 12,000 posts or something on there now using that tag, which is amazing. And all I do is every few weeks, one of us will pick a few that have stood out to them, and just show them off. We're not here to critique them, not doing any of that sort of nonsense. Who are we to do that? But it's just stuff we think's cool, and I try very hard for them not to all be critters.
It's just 50%.
It's pretty close this week, if I'm honest. Yeah. This is someone I follow on Twitter, and actually had been watching them post almost daily, and seeing them slowly fall in love with this crab. I think
great account.
Turned out to be more of a more lengthy project than they planned, but by choice. I think they were just really, really enjoying it. And this, I believe, was the voted best miniature of 2021 or something, wasn't it?
Damn straight.
From Games Workshop, Krabnos.
Doing some great little sea creatures and all these little boxes every now and then. It's great.
Absolutely. Mr. Snips looking rad. It's nice seeing as well these more, not psychedelic, but you know what I mean, like these super colourful paint jobs. I think Louise Sugden, obviously quite well known for that choice, but it's nice to see some other people showing it off as well. But
love it. Absolutely love
it. What we got next? Oh, this just creeped me out. I thought it was cool. This account, I've put a few pictures up. It's just very unpleasant, and I think the eye is very cool, right?
Yeah.
What's
the way all the rest are like these neons and everything, and then the eye looks quite sort of
What's that animation of the what's it called?
Night Fair or Christmas kind of thing, isn't
it? Like the Tim Burton type thing.
It kind of looks like that. I don't know. Little children with teddy bears that are dead just kind of me up.
No one likes that, Matt.
So yeah, and again, talking about the breadth of minis you're going to be exposed to if you follow the hashtag. This is I'd unlikely to have ever seen this miniature if not for that. Also thought the hair was very, 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 very well done.
I love those.
The hues in the faces as well.
Super cool. So,
and some of these Russian crypto crap.
Got more crypto. Makes a change from the porn bots.
Yeah, I mean maybe we could get
crypto and porn. What could be better
at the moment, eh?
So, next up is
so something very different from psychedelic-y, scary children and crabs. I just really liked this take on a marine. Like I'm a big fan of black helmets on marines. I think they work really well. I was playing around with some different schemes myself last week. But yeah, it was just a nice. It's like pleasingly simple, right?
Yeah, I love I love the base, and I think just looking at the shin, the low contrast in the white in terms of shading, and how well done the battle damage is. That's my jam at the moment.
Yeah,
that's how I'd like Lunar Wolves to look in Heresy. But this style does it for me for gaming. For sure. I just think this is how Marine should look, because it's not like all shiny. It makes you feel like, this is a war miniature. I love it. I'd love to know what he did for the grey, if it's just a flat grey, or what shadings on it, if any. Yeah, we're into it.
Something that he put in the comment on the image was that, does it constitute sort of being grimdark?
Grimdark, yes. That's because this was almost my pick of the week.
So where is that grimdark level?
Yeah, because I when we did the MPO, I know we had that sort of grimdark category, didn't we? And we spoke about that actually. Sometimes I think Blanchitsu gets conflated with grimdark, right? And people think it has to be either Blanchitsu or dunked in streaking grime to count as grimdark. Whereas actually, for me, this is absolutely grimdark. Absolutely.
It's realistic and gritty, right? That's the point.
It's not to sound too wanky, but it evokes the right emotion, doesn't it? Like when you look at it. And I think
it makes you immersed in the world because you look like he's actually had a fight, not like la la la, I'm fluorescent yellow.
Which, like, don't get me wrong, like I love the bright stuff too. I like it all.
Yeah, me too.
But this is as just as you said, this is right up my street at the moment. So I think there were a couple more. I just realised, because I always forget what they've written in the comments, and I always try and read it before I pick them. So what I'll do is bring them up on my phone now as we're talking about it. And there's already been flipping tons of them since I picked them. Right, what we got up next, Matt?
3 more. So,
speaking of critters, I thought the fur was just super cool on this guy, and unsurprisingly, it did stand out as I was scrolling through. This is something.
Will's in the chat.
Yeah, Will's in the chat, and I think he's done this for Kickstarter maybe recently. Certainly for someone else, I think he'd done this.
It's got such a big head.
It's a massive head, isn't it? But it's just fun.
I knew you'd love this. Like when I saw this mini, I'm like, Henry.
But the thing is, I don't quite know, like, because I have no desire to paint it whatsoever, or own it.
Like it.
But it just makes me giggle. I think it's nice to, it's just nice to see. It's very not
we need
Games
to have minis
Workshop.
like that sometimes, because
absolutely.
I think we need to look at minis and not order them. We need to look at it and go, that's really cool. That's made me happy. But I don't need to paint one. I don't need to order one. And it's nice. And I'm hoping that a lot of Games Workshop bring out a lot of stuff like that for me in the next 6 months, because I am done. I am booked in till March. So, just some mediocre stuff, please.
This is from Blood Carrot Knights. And if you dig this, you're going to really like their other stuff, including an amazing Doberman model.
Phil's just said from grimdark to grimbark.
Beautiful. God, you're on fire tonight, Phil.
Shame.
Was going to Kickstarter, but then got delayed for like half a year. We can very much sympathise with that. Nick's wallet can't handle more bulldog type miniatures. Well, if you like your puppers, there's plenty of stuff out there now. There's people catering to you for sure. 2 more, is there? I picked quite a few actually, didn't I? Yeah. So that's very restrained, wasn't it?
You'll like this.
Oh, I could not pick this, obviously, because it's one of our miniatures. But Scaretend, the miniature sold, was the best selling of all the elves we did. And I think, unsurprisingly, she's the one I've seen most people painting.
It's great.
Certainly that they've tagged us in. But what I love is nearly all the ones I've seen, people have built a scene around her. And one of the things I think we mentioned it on the last episode, is this idea of, if a miniature is well designed, you shouldn't need to have tons of artwork, tons of background story, and all the rest of it to get across what it is and sort of where it could belong. And I think that's been shown by people sort of getting it, and you leave enough room for them, right, to interpret it and create these little scenes. And they've used a load of basing stuff from a company called Make It Epic, and I've seen a few people using their bits. I was talking to our friend Josh about it, and I think they were previously miniatures designers or something, or worked for some other people and stuff, and then didn't anymore and decided to just make fun resin basing upgrade parts. And they produce a lot of them. which this account has stuck all over their base and created this cool sort of mountainside mushroomy thing.
Yeah, Keith's done a great job on that. I think he's a local boy, old Keith.
So,
So,
oh, nice.
from
Nice.
our end.
But yeah, if you like this character, then keep an eye out for Dagard 2. So we might see her again. What's the last slide then, Matt?
Well,
yeah.
I've seen this. It's great.
I mean, I have no idea what this is. It's just brilliant. I'm desperately scrolling through to find out now. More shots of the little fellow. Oh dear, that could be misconstrued. That's just lovely.
Paint job's really good.
It's great, isn't it? Look at the eye.
Yeah, I think I like the fluorescent green in the body.
And then
but all the markings are really natural, and the eye and the shine on the eye, it's really good.
Do you remember the other week I picked that like tiny diorama? I think it was a frog or something. Someone had done it to just do him like a miniature diorama with. It's kind of got that vibe, right? But yeah, just lovely.
Yeah, that's great.
And yeah, so it's been a very this was certainly one of the hardest weeks to pick the previous few weeks Cultist tags from. There seems to have been, I don't know whether it'd be interesting to look at why perhaps loads of stuff's been finished recently. So I don't know whether people have started projects at the beginning of a summer holiday or got off from work for 2 weeks, or I don't know what, but there just seems to be more stuff finished. But that makes you paint less, surely.
I'm joking.
It
was paint quicker.
Oh Christ!
Trying
to paint this weekend, trying to do a demo at 29 degrees outside, and it was, don't know what it was inside. Trying to paint an eye lens, it was just dry. No. Okay, got there in the end. But yeah, not much longer to wait until it's good painting weather again, right?
Just nobody can complain about it being cold now.
Yeah, well, we're British. That's what we do. So that, I think, should close out the show. Oh, Quentin's saying, I'm sad I wasn't in the hobby when the first Kickstarter went out. Glad if a second one happens. There was, yeah, and we'll figure out a way to get some of the Dagard models on sale again in the future. We're keen for them not to. If someone wants them, we want them to be able to have it. Put it that way. So we'll figure something out with that, Quentin, for sure. So yeah, that's the episode, and lovely to see everyone again. Are we back next week, or are we going to leave it 2 weeks again? We're going back on the regular schedule. I don't know. We'll make our minds up.
Yeah, should be out.
See how hot it is.
Yeah,
2 weeks from here is probably more likely, and then we'll be well into August. Then, well over halfway through the year. And we should maybe consider how we've all got on from what we were chatting about at the start of the year. As to what we wanted to achieve. Love look at that. But as ever, thank you very much to the chat for being there, asking all the questions, having a natter. You make it very, very entertaining. It's certainly better than listening to me. If you're watching this back on YouTube and all the rest of it, you know the deal. Like, subscribe, all the rest of it. Those little clicks actually make a massive difference and allow us to grow the show and get on guests that you guys and girls want us to get on and that we want to get on. One of which we've got coming up very soon, and I am vibrating with excitement about.
The big one. It's big, people.
Massive. It's going to be very, very good indeed. And then lastly, obviously, thanks to Matt and Andy for joining me as ever. And thanks to all the Bitcoin bots as well, keeping it real in the chat. They're working
I'm all
hard,
about the
crypto bros
tonight. Yeah, crypto bros out to you as well. But yeah, thanks as ever, guys. It's been super fun. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.